This video will describe the Fonts tab of the Setup dialog. The Fonts tab is this first one. And before I show you this, I'd like to briefly remind you that we have two views of our analyzed Bible verses. This is called the linear view, and we always use this. We also have what we call a tree view. It's a very flat tree, but still this is a tree. But we don't use this view anymore, but it's here. When we go to the Setup dialog, we have what we call the linear view and the tree view. Up here we have the target font, and we can set the target font if we change it from Comic Sans to Consolis. Let's say Consolis 24. Now, the size won't show up here. The size will show up in the lexicon and in the rules. For example, if we say apply, it changed the font, but the size didn't change. But if we look over in our rules, we see now that the font size here is much too large. We need to increase the size of these rows. We would do that in the lexicon. But here, let's go back to Comic Sans. Let's go back to 12. If we click Apply, you'll see the font change, but not the size. The size is determined down here. If we say increase the English refers to the concepts, the English concepts. Let's increase that to 16. The features refers to the features. Let's increase that to 12. And the target text refers to the target text down below each word. We'll increase that to 16. If we say apply, you see that all of these are changed. And if you adjust these, that will apply to the tree view. But again, we don't really use the tree view anymore. Let's put these back. So now we have these fonts again. Now these font size of target text at top of screen, that's after we generate a verse. And embedded glosses, I'll show you that. Let's generate this verse. So here's the translation of this verse, Exodus 2:3. Now we have embed glosses checked. If we uncheck it, then the glosses are removed. If you're working in language that you don't speak well, maybe you're helping someone else with another language. So you can have the glosses embedded inside. Now here, if we go back here, so the font size at the top of the screen, let's increase that to 16. Font size of embedded glosses in text. Let's decrease that. We'll increase it to 14. We can say OK. Now when we generate the verse, you see that the fonts are much larger. Now when you have large fonts, you'll probably want to adjust the size of this text box at the top. Now right now we're in looking at the full verse. So we can say that, and see how this number increases, and this text box here will increase in height. See, that will increase this to 190. And if we say apply, okay, this text box became much larger. Now if we generate the verse, it all fits. So you'll want to adjust the size of this text box based on whether or not you generally embed these fonts. If we unselect this box, uncheck that box, now we don't need nearly that much height. So for entire verse, we can reduce it, and we'll reduce it to 150. You can choose whatever fits for you. Now notice that the size of this text box will decrease when I say apply. Now we can generate it again. So choose a size that fits well, depending on whether you have the embedded glosses or not. When you're in single sentence mode, okay, now we're looking at just one sentence. And again, we can scroll from sentence to sentence by coming over here. And we see Exodus 2:3-2, Exodus 2:3-3. When you're in single sentence mode, this text box determines the height of the window up at the top. We'll decrease this to 50. So that's how tall the text box will be when I click apply. So now it's much smaller. So again, you decide how large or small this text box will be by adjusting these two windows, one for single sentence mode, one for the full verse mode. Here at this dialog, we also have the lexicon and ontology setup. There was a separate video about this. This determines the size of the target font in the lexicon and the rules. And then the target alphabetizing sequence button is also here.